I'm Michael. I'm a small business owner. I'm an investor. I'm a work in process improv artist. I'm a bit manic, and I'm always looking for something new and interesting to entertain me. I'm a TV host, and I'm your host right now for what we call the Second Scene Podcast. It's a Dweebs Global production where you get free resume help, mental health assistance, and so much more. There's no catch, and we're completely confidential, so please contact us at dweebsglobal.org to get help for free. So I am here today with Betty Martin. She went from a successful 30-year career as a chiropractor, raised 3 kids, and established a wellness center to becoming a somatic sex educator, a certified surrogate partner, and an author. Did that summarize you up okay?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay. Hard to fit people into a sentence or two. And yours is pretty interesting.
That fits pretty well, yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna try to keep this as an interview, but it might be somewhat of a self-help session for me as well. I'm not really sure where it's gonna end up.
That's fair enough.
So you're just outside of Seattle right now?
I'm just outside Seattle.
Okay. Yeah. Is that where you're originally from?
No, I'm originally from, I was an Air Force kid, so kind of all over, but mostly New Mexico.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. What brought you to Seattle? Why'd you end up there?
Oh, golly. My then husband, we had 3 kids, little kids, and he was working at Los Alamos National Laboratory, and it became morally ambiguous for him to be designing prototypes for nuclear warheads. And he moved up here. We moved up here so he could work at the Environmental Protection Agency, which he felt better about.
He totally flipped the script.
Yeah.
I always wondered about that. I bet you a lot of people wonder about that. People who work on weapons of mass destruction and how they feel about it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's a really good question. I'm sure it's a wide range. And, reading the stories of the people who worked on the Manhattan Project, which also was at Los Alamos, and developing the atomic bomb, they have some very interesting stories and different views on all that work.
Oh, yeah. But you grew up and you decided you went into chiropractor.
So yes, I in my early 20s, I was working for a chiropractor as a receptionist in South Carolina, and this was my first husband. My then husband decided he wanted to go to chiropractic school because we were exposed to us, and he said, yeah, he wanted to go to chiropractic school. And I thought, well, I'm not going to just follow him. So I didn't think about going. And then the chiropractor we worked for, which was actually a husband and wife team, they set me down and said, okay, Betty, what are you going to do if Jess gets hit by a truck? Wait tables again? I said, you're right. I'm going to chiropractic school too. So we went together.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I loved it. I just loved it. It was, at that time, there were only a few, there was maybe 10 or 15% of women in the class. And, but by the time I graduated, the class was like 30% women. And it's a very fun career profession because you have your hands on people, you're working. I mean, if you like people, it is. If you don't like people, I don't recommend it. You have your hands on people, you're talking with people about their lives, and people are getting well. I mean, like, people get well all the time, all day long. So that's really fun. And I did that for about 30 years and a couple of different places, but I ended up outside Seattle, in a little town called Vashon. And
that's a very long-lasting career.
Yeah, it was really great, and it helped me. It gave me a decent income, so I could also raise my kids. It was great.
Most people.
I woke up and I looked at the ceiling, and I had founded this wellness center. and bought an old house on the main drag and fixed it up and put parking and, fixed it all up.
Nice.
And then one morning I woke up and I said, oh, I'm done with chiropractic. I said, okay, well then what's next? I had no idea. But it took me, a couple of years to actually extricate myself and sell the practice and stuff.
Gotcha. So then how did you find your way to this being a sex coach?
Yeah. Well, that had been going on while I was still a chiropractor. In my mid 40s, I went to a women's sexuality workshop by the Body Electric School.
What exactly is that? What does that entail?
There's lots of different kinds of workshops, but this particular workshop, some of them are more hands-on than others. Some of them are talking, some of them there's a lot of movement, usually in breath, and kind of getting acquainted with our bodies, our expressive ability in our bodies. That tends to be a theme. And this particular one included some massage where we were on the table taking turns massaging each other. And it included sexual massage. And it was very carefully guided. It happened over 2 or 3 days. And it probably sounds outrageous to a lot of people, but it was a very natural and easy progression. And the interesting thing was, it's not really about sex at all. It's about if you think of sex as the thing that happens between two people, 2 or more people anyway, if you think that sex is the thing that happens between 2 people and something goes in some orifice somewhere, and there's A leads to B leads to C, and it's about the sort of the connection between the people, and in that sense, it wasn't about sex at all. It wasn't about hooking up. It wasn't about connecting with somebody. The purpose of the workshop was to help the participants have an experience that's about them. So when I was on the tables dancing and moving and breathing and talking and lots of different things. But when I was on the massage table, it was all about me. And the people, the 2 women who were assisting me with their hands on me at my direction were assisting me, but the experience was all about me. It wasn't about, am I hooking up with you? Am I in love with you? Am I attracted to you? Do I want to make out with you? None of that was there. It was just, what is my body capable of? How does my body respond? What are the feelings that come up for me as I have this internal experience of my own arousal? And for most people, sex equals couple, pair, we're doing this thing together. We're hopefully paying attention to each other. And we're connecting, hooking up in some way.
Right. And usually
but this was not that.
Usually when it comes to arousal too, it needs to be in the mind as well as physical. So
But here's an experiment. What happens if that's really true. And that's why they say the brain is the biggest sex organ, because our attitude and our mind and what's going on in our mind is very important. But what if you set that aside? So there's no particular meaning, there's no context, it's just body sensation. Then what happens? Well, it's very challenging for one thing, because all of your self-doubt and confusion and shame can come up. It can also be incredibly liberating. Oh my gosh, this is what my body does when it has the chance. Holy shit, because it's not, because I'm not constrained by having to tend to somebody else. I'm not constrained by the nature of the relationship, or whether I'm mad at you, or whether you're, resentful of me, or whatever. It's just what happens when I am completely in my body and just attending to my sensation and my arousal. What happens?
Okay. Does it work for men as well? Like I can't
Oh,
imagine.
yeah,
I can't
yeah,
imagine
yeah,
not having the
yeah,
the fantasies in the
yeah,
mind
yeah,
while
yeah,
being aroused. Like it just doesn't.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
They don't connect.
Well, here's what it is. It's an exploration.
Okay.
You're exploring, like, what happens if I just pay attention to my sensation? Do I know how? Can I? Do I get bored? Do I get excited? Does my mind go here? Does the mind go there? Does my breathing stop? Do I get embarrassed? Do I get more turned on? Do I get, like, it's an exploration, because it's like sort of like going in a door and then, wow, what's in this room? I never been in this room before. This is really interesting room. Um, and yes, the organization that offered the workshop um, offered it for men only for, I don't know, 30 years or something. And when I took it in 1994, it was one of the first times they started offering things for women. But they were a men's organization for many years before offering anything for women.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, it's so hard for
It's
me
called
to
the Body Electric School, and they're still going. Yeah.
body electric school. Okay. Sounds like it really takes a deep meditation to get into that state to really keep the mind from, right? Or I guess you're just letting the
No,
mind
I don't.
go. And
It's different for everybody, and it's different at different times. You could have this type of massage for, a dozen times and be different every time. But I can see you're asking about it. I can see, like, how does that work?
I'm really trying to get it. I really am.
Yeah, all I can say is it's an experiment, and I don't recommend doing it with your partner and sort of going off in your own mind when they're there wondering where the heck you are. I don't recommend that.
Probably
It does
tell them.
require,
You should tell them
yeah,
that that's what you're doing.
yeah, it does require a certain context and some clear agreements and some clear boundaries, and that is, of course, required.
Okay.
So after that workshop, a few weeks later, I took a similar one that was for men and women combined. And then I met with a few people, a few other women who had also taken those workshops. And we met together every month for years, 2 or 3 years. And we started where the workshop ended and just kept exploring. And again, it wasn't about, sex, sticking something in somewhere, and hooking up. It was about, okay, let's continue to explore what is my body capable of? What happens if I do this? What happens if I do that? And so it became kind of a spiritual path for me for a number of years. It's like, okay, the interesting thing that I noticed was that the more physical I got, meaning the more I could attend to the physicality of my sensation, the more spiritual it felt. As I look back on it, I realized, well, that's just brain action. When we're completely and totally focused, different parts of our brain light up, different parts of our brain kind of go to sleep. But I felt that the more physical I got, the more spiritual it felt, which was kind of mind blowing. And um, anyway, so we explored for a number of years. And then after a few years more, I realized I would like to offer these experiences to other people. And so about that time, I was closing my chiropractic office, selling the practice. And I moved into the city, into Seattle, because I was living in a small town. I couldn't do it in a small town. So I moved into the city and I opened another studio and printed some flyers and things. This is before websites. Printed some flyers and things. And I already had a network for a lot of other connections. And so I just offered this practice then. And I was already a clinician, so I knew, how to take a history and how to make a treatment plan, and that kind of stuff. So I was approaching it very coach coach-like, and I would help you figure out what kind of help you wanted. And I was already, I had been teaching peer counseling for a number of years, so I knew how to listen to people. I was comfortable with people in various stages of undress, and so I could just guide people into experiences that were helpful for them. And I was staying clothed. They were mostly clothed. So that's where I started doing the coaching. And then after 2 or 3 years of that, I realized that for people for whom it would be useful, and if I was comfortable with them, I was interested in offering experiences that were more explicitly sexual. And meaning that they could get undressed, I could get undressed, we could explore more, just get sexier, basically.
Gotcha.
And
How does that tread the line with
legality,
with legality? Correct.
it's not legal.
Okay.
But my kids were grown and I wasn't worried about it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It just didn't work.
Yeah, no, it's not legal, unfortunately. I mean, that's a whole different topic, legalizing sex work.
Right.
And I considered myself a sex worker, broadly defined, because sex work is pretty broadly defined. And, if you're dealing with human sexual arousal, you're a sex worker.
Okay. You avoided all trouble though, I'm guessing. I guess it never.
Yeah, I did. I was very fortunate. And part of that was because, I wasn't working on the street. I could filter my clients and say, no, we're not a good fit,
Right.
And so I have a certain privilege in that regard. I had enough financial stability to say no if I didn't feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
So I do realize that.
Right. That makes sense.
And so the word that we used was called a sacred intimate, because it's not really an escort work, because it's much more focused on you learning something, you deepening your spiritual experience of it. It was me guiding you into an experience that's useful for you. And I imagine some people say, yeah, what's the difference, and that's a fair question. There's a very wide range of how people do sex work. And, it's a very wide, as many different kinds of sex work as there are people who offer it. And I don't consider any kind to be any more enlightened or cooler, or, there's room for everybody. There's room for different kinds of work, and there's needed different kinds of work are needed. So then I was doing sex work, and in a couple of different forms. One was as a coach, I stay clothed, you stay clothed, I'm helping you with this, that, and the other, and helping you notice what you want and so forth. And then other sessions were sexier. So there was a wide range, and I liked the range. It's very satisfying helping people have aha moments. Just really fun.
I could definitely tell it's something you enjoy. It's something that makes you feel good. You are helping people. I'm with you on that. Is that a certified surrogate partner? Is that essentially
a surrogate partner? That's a little bit different. A certified surrogate partner means that you are working with a therapist. And in the old days, in Master and Johnson days, they would give you exercises to do. But if you didn't have a partner to do them with, then you would hire a surrogate to do the exercises with. And so a surrogate partner works in a triad with the client, the therapist, and the surrogate. And they're all three talking to each other. They're not in the same room necessarily, but they're all communicating and what's going on and what is this person needing to learn and so forth. So it's kind of a medicalized version of a surrogate, a sexual surrogate. And a lot of times they don't actually have sex, that you might get coaching on grooming, you might get practice on going on a date, you might learn how to touch or learn how to be touched, or you might learn some anatomy, you know.
Okay.
A common misconception about surrogates is that they always sex, and nah, they don't. It's not really that often. It's all the other stuff. And what I often say is that the most of 90% of what you need to learn about sex, you need to learn before you get your clothes off. It's how to communicate, how to notice what you want, how to notice what you don't want, how to say no, how to explore your own self, you know.
I noticed you talked.
That's enough. Now let's go back to your questions.
Yeah, this is all very interesting to me, and that actually led me into a different question, because I know you talk a lot about touch and how people don't use touch correctly or touch really at all. Maybe you could explain that a little bit.
Well, human touch is a basic biological and emotional need. We're born with it. We never outgrow it. And unfortunately, in our society, the need for touch is conflated with the need for sex. So we think if we're being touched, then it's about sex, and there's sex is going to happen somewhere. It's in the room, you know. But actually, they're very different needs. The need for sex is not actually the need for sexual activity. It's the need for sexual expression, to be who we are as a sexual being, as opposed to who we think we're supposed to be or supposed to somebody else's. The need for touch is physical. We just need the actual stimulus on our skin. It's also emotional because it carries an emotional message, how we're touched or not touched. It carries a message. And so one of the ways that we are affirmed in our sort of goodness, especially as infants and small children, is that we get held and stroked and, you know, cared for.
How does that lead into strengthening relationships? I'm guessing you work with couples or...
Yeah, well, relationships are interesting. Relationships vary in how much touch happens. And people vary in how much touch they actually want and how much touch they're comfortable with, if the other person wants more than they do, and has a lot to do with feeling whether you have a choice about it. Well, first of all, actually having a choice about it, and then noticing that you have a choice about it and exercising the choice that you do have. So couples really vary in how much touch they want or interested in or enjoy. And some couples are very touchy, feely, and cuddly, but don't have much sex. And other couples have loads of sex, but don't have any touch outside of sex, which to me is a real tragedy. And some couples, don't really do much of anything at all. And, so people will often come to me wanting to learn how to touch better and wanting to be happier with the touch that's happening. And that's kind of something that I specialize in.
Okay. I know a lot of people, they, with the relationship, they want to have somebody and just one person, and expressing the love is either through, like you said, through just touch or through just sex. And sometimes there's nothing in between. And I guess that's where a lot of difficulty can come in. You also developed a whole method called the School of Consent, and you have the wheel. I was hoping you could go into that a little bit.
Yeah. So in working with all these hundreds of people, at one of these previous workshops, because I did a lot of those workshops over those years, we learned a game called the 3-minute game. And it goes like this. You take turns asking each other, what do you want me to do to you for 3 minutes? And what do you want to do to me for 3 minutes? Well, that sounds like fun. Are you kidding? Like, yeah, I can think of some fun things to do to you for 3 minutes, And I can think of some fun things that I want you to do to me for 3 minutes. And when you take turns asking those questions, what you end up with is 4 rounds of the game. And I noticed right away that, oh, there's on 2 of those I'm doing, and on 2 of those I'm getting what I want, and 2 of those it's about what you want, and they don't they cross like the matrix. So either I'm doing what you want or I'm doing what I want, and you're doing what I want or you're doing what you want, and so that creates 4 quadrants. So I kept noticing that as I was teaching people, and then I changed the questions slightly because I wasn't teaching power dynamics, I was teaching touch. So I changed it to, how do you want me to touch you for 3 minutes, and how do you want to touch me for 3 minutes? And then of course you expand the time, how do you want me to touch you for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, whatever. But what I noticed was people very often had a hard time noticing the difference between touching me the way I wanted and touching me the way they wanted. And it's quite a different, and it's a very important difference. And so the wheel of consent is about that difference. It's about the fact, if I'm touching you, is it for me or for you? And what's the difference, and why does it matter? And what is there to learn in each of those different dynamics?
Can you give me a for instance?
Yeah, if I have my hand on your head, for example, am I doing the way you want me to do it? Or am I just feeling up your head and your hair and, for my own enjoyment? And each of those is going to feel different to you. And each of those is going to feel different to me. What was surprising is how difficult it is for most people to touch someone else for their own enjoyment, because it brings up shame and doubt and confusion and like, I don't know, what are you talking about? I can't figure this out. And it turned out that was really the hardest for most people. But when it clicks for you, when you do it, it's incredibly liberating.
Got you. Interesting. I would think one of the hardest things would be to ask for precisely what you want.
Yes, exactly. That's also very difficult for most people.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah.
Not from personal experience, but I can see that coming from.
Yeah. No, not from those. I'm asking for somebody I know.
Exactly. My best friend called me beforehand. He had all these questions.
It's difficult to ask for what you want. Of course it is.
So what's your advice to couples that need to learn how to do that better?
Play the 3-minute game.
Yeah.
And it's on YouTube. You can look it up, 3-minute game. And it's also on my website. And the important thing is that you can say no, or you can say, yeah, you can do that, but only to here. Or, yeah, you can do that, but no reaching. Or, you set a limit, because the important part of being able to give a gift, whether I'm giving you my action, doing what you've asked me to do, or I'm giving you my body or some part of it.
Is there touch therapy that is completely non-sexual?
Yes, there is actually. There's a movement in recent years for cuddling. And I'm part of an organization called Cuddle Party, which we host events in our living rooms where over the rules and create some safety, and then you get to cuddle. It's completely non-sexual. It's clothed, people in pajamas, they got teddy bears, and it's an opportunity to notice that you can have your touch needs met without it being sex. And then there are also now people offering cuddle sessions. Cuddleist.com is one, and there are other ones. Cuddle Sanctuary is another one, where you can have a session with somebody And again, it's not sexy, it's clothed, it's not in a bedroom, it's on the floor, on the couch, and you can get a foot rub or you get held, and it's very, very rich experience. It's funny, sometimes people find it more difficult, more emotionally challenging to have touch that isn't about sex, because it just kind of it kind of affects us in a different way than touch that is about sex.
Have you dealt with people that have a lot of insecurities with their body, or like that prevents them from being able
Oh,
to
yeah.
let go?
Oh, yeah.
How have you helped them, or what's the advice you can give there?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, that applies to pretty much everybody. So don't think that there's something wrong with you if you
No, I
have
think there's,
doubts about your body. Of course you do, because we're surrounded by these images of glowing bodies, of course.
but there's
And
definitely different levels. You definitely see
yeah.
different levels in people. Some people are
Oh, yeah.
here, like it's, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing is that we all we're attracted to different kinds of bodies. And you know what? I'm attracted to you for who you are, not because, you've got abs or whatever kind of nonsense. I mean, I realize that varies. We all have our limits of what who we're interested cuddling with and who we're not. And body is sometimes part of it, sometimes body is not part of it. But what I would suggest and how I would work with somebody is help them learn to notice what their body feels like from the inside instead of what they think it looks like from the outside. So as you experience pleasure with your body, and we would do this probably mostly through touch, as you experience your body as the source of pleasure, you suddenly have a different relationship to it. It's like, wow, this body can really feel good. Then it's less and less important what it looks like, because you know what it feels like.
Okay. I know you had a funny story about your first workshop that you were in. So I'd love to hear that before we go.
Uh, well, I think the this has happened when I was on the massage table, so it was the third day in, and and I'm lying there on the massage table, naked, of course, and these two other women are serving me, and at one point, and I was beginning to notice that this is not about being a couple. This is about me. What's my experience? And I sat up. I was laying on my back, and I sat up and I looked at them both and I said, I don't have to pick up your socks, do I? And they said, no, you don't. And I just said, yay! And laid back down and enjoyed my massage. And something just clicked of like, oh, I don't have to give anything back. I don't owe anybody anything. This is just about me.
That's so freeing.
It was completely liberating. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there's definitely something that I completely respect about you, and how you're able to live so free with it and really enjoy part of who we are. And I think something that we're supposed to be able to enjoy. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah. It was a complete turnaround in my life, and I was in my mid 40s before I even kind of woke up to this whole aspect of life. Um, so there's hope for you, those people who are thinking about changes.
Where do you recommend somebody go that just wanted to explore, tread water with it and not dive all the way in?
Well, my organization now is called School of Consent. You can go to schoolofconsent.org, and we offer workshops. And we also post other people's workshops. There's really a lot happening in sexuality, sexuality work and workshops and explorations nowadays.
Well, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. This was very interesting. So thank you. This has been Second Scene with me, Michael. Thank you, Betty. You can get
You
more
are so
information.
welcome. It's fun to talk to you.
It's been so much fun. You can get more information at bettymartin.org, as well as schoolofconsent.org. And then if you need more no-nonsense advice or free resume help, free mental health assistance, and so much more, there's no catch. It's completely confidential and completely free at dweebsglobal.org. So
Check that out.